Hey everyone, ever stop and think about the shirt you're wearing right now? I mean, really think about how it was made. It's so easy to just picture sewing machines, right? But the story, it starts way, way before that, with this incredibly important, surprisingly technical step that happens in massive factories. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on the hidden science of fabric spreading. This is the process that pretty much decides the fit, the quality, and yeah, the price of almost every piece of clothing you own. So let's get right into it.
You know, the entire fashion industry, whether we're talking about high-end luxury or fast fashion, it all comes down to this one question. How do you take one single design and scale it up to make thousands, maybe even millions of pieces that are all exactly the same? Well, the answer isn't magic. It's all about extreme precision, and it all kicks off with building the perfect stack.
So, here's the game plan for today. We're going to start with the basics, then dive deep into all the challenges. And trust me, there are a lot. Then we'll check out the different techniques they use to get it right, and we'll wrap up with the bottom line, how this whole thing really impacts the clothes hanging in your closet.
All right, so before a single thread is ever sewn, you've got this gigantic, colossal roll of fabric. And that roll has to be turned into a perfectly prepared canvas. This right here is the unsung hero stage of making clothes. It's where absolute precision sets the stage for everything, and I mean everything that comes after.
This whole process is called fabric spreading. And really, it's this delicate dance between art and science. If you get it right, you get efficiency, you get quality. But if you get it wrong, oh, you've just created a very, very expensive pile of completely useless cloth.
So here's the textbook definition for you. Fabric spreading is just the process of unrolling fabric into these perfectly aligned layers, which are called plies. Now, why bother? What's the point? The whole idea is to create this massive stack so you can cut hundreds of pattern pieces. We're talking sleeves, collars, pant legs, you name it, all at the exact same time. It is literally the key to making clothes in bulk.
And this picture really shows you the heart of it. The ultimate goal, whether you're doing it by hand like these workers or with some crazy advanced machine, is that every single layer has to be perfectly flat, perfectly lined up, and under the perfect amount of tension. This one step has a direct line to the final quality, the cost, and the overall productivity of the entire factory. No pressure, right?
But look, this is so much more than just unrolling a big piece of fabric. The people and machines doing this are in a constant battle, a battle against imperfection. There's a whole checklist of things that can go sideways, and believe me, each one can spell disaster for the final product.
Seriously, this process is a minefield of potential mistakes. Operators have to sort through rolls to make sure the colors match perfectly, no slight variations allowed. They have to get the fabric grain just right, make sure the alignment is flawless. But maybe the biggest, trickiest challenge of them all, it's tension.
Okay, this is what I like to call the Goldilocks problem. It's a classic. If you spread the fabric with too little tension, you get all these weird ripples and bubbles. That means your cut pieces are going to be totally distorted. But, and this is a big but, if you pull it with too much tension, you're basically stretching the fabric. So after you cut it, it's going to shrink back to its normal size and poof, all your pieces are suddenly way too small and completely ruined. The tension has to be, you guessed it, just right. Of course, no roll of fabric is ever 100% perfect. So what happens when you find a flaw, like a snag or a dye blotch? Well, you've got three main strategies. For cheaper items, you might just leave it in and sell that garment as a second quality piece. More often, you'll actually cut the fabric right at the flaw and then splice in a new perfect section. Or if the fabric is super expensive, you cut all the pieces as planned and then you go back and recut just the faulty panels from whatever material is left over.
Oh, and the fun doesn't stop there. On dry days, static electricity can make synthetic fabrics cling and just refuse to cooperate. Sometimes the edges of the fabric roll, called the selvage, are woven too tight, and that causes the middle to bunch up. And other times, the fabric's actual weave is warped or bent, a problem called skewing or bowing, which totally throws off the grain of the pattern. It takes an incredible amount of skill to manage all of these little hurdles.
Okay, so we've laid out all the problems. It sounds pretty tough, right? Well, now let's talk about the solutions. Because spreaders have a whole arsenal of techniques and constructions they can pull from to build that perfect stack, all depending on the fabric they're working with and the design they need to make. The very first choice you have to make is about the basic shape of the lay itself. The most common one you'll see is a straight lay, where every single ply is the exact same length. Super simple. But every once in a while, you'll see what's called a stepped lay.
That's where the plies have different lengths, usually to fit different sized patterns onto the same stack. So why pick one over the other? Well, it really just comes down to efficiency. A straight lay is way simpler to manage and, crucially, it creates a lot less fabric waste. That makes it the go-to method most of the time. A stepped lay, on the other hand, is more complicated and wasteful, so you really only see it used for very specific, smaller production runs.
Okay, next up, operators have to decide on the direction of the fabric itself. They can lay all the plies facing the same way, which is absolutely essential for fabrics that have a clear pattern or a texture, like velvet. They could also lay them face to face, in pairs. Or, and this is the clever one, for fabrics that look the same on both sides, they can use the zigzag method. With this one, the fabric isn't even cut at the end of the table, it's just folded back. As you can imagine, this is by far the fastest and most popular way to do it, but only when the material allows for it. So how does all this work actually get done? Well, it pretty much boils down to two options. You're either doing it manually or mechanically. The manual method is cheap, it's flexible, and it's perfect for small batches. But let's be honest, it just can't deliver the kind of precision you need for high-quality, massive-scale manufacturing. For that, you gotta bring in the machine.
And this is where technology is just so cool. Fully automatic spreading machines are absolutely incredible. They have sensors that can detect faults, specialized devices to control the tension perfectly, and they can spread fabric at speeds up to 140 meters a minute. You can program them for specific lengths and heights, and they'll even cut the fabric for you automatically. They basically solve almost all of those human error problems we talked about earlier. It's a game changer.
Which brings us right to our final section, the bottom line. Because at the end of the day, all of this amazing technique and technology, it all comes down to a pretty simple business calculation involving cost, speed, and quality. And the technology just keeps getting better and better. Modern systems have sensors that can spot flaws that were marked earlier in the process and automatically stop the machine. Some cutting tables actually use jets of air to create this little cushion, which lets operators move a massive, multi-ton stack of fabric around with barely any effort. And get this, vacuum tables use suction to compress all the layers, holding them perfectly still for the cutting blade. How cool is that?
Ultimately, though, it all comes back to money. When you strip everything else away, the two biggest expenses in fabric spreading are the cost of labor to do the work and the cost of the fabric that gets wasted from ends, splices, and damages. Every single bit of precision, every new piece of tech is really designed to drive one or both of those costs down. So the next time you pull on a t-shirt or a pair of jeans, just remember this. Long before it was ever sewn, it was a tiny part of a massive, perfectly engineered stack of fabric. It's this whole hidden world of precision that makes sure the clothes we wear are consistent, affordable, and well-made. And it all starts with this one fundamental step. And that kind of leaves us with one last question to chew on. As the fashion world keeps shifting towards more sustainable practices, towards on-demand manufacturing, how is this incredibly fundamental process going to have to evolve? What does the future of the perfect stack even look like? It's something to think about. Thanks so much for tuning in.